guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into the live homeschool history lesson, I wanted to pop on and just give you guys a little bit of an intro and explain why I wanted to do this video. Today's video is brought to you guys in partnership with The Good and the Beautiful, and like I said, I'm going to answer a few questions that I get commonly asked regarding the history curriculum from The Good and the Beautiful, and then I am going to share a live lesson with you guys from our history curriculum, which is The Good and the Beautiful History Year 3. So if you're familiar with The Good and the Beautiful's history program, you know that there are 4 years. So we have almost completed all of them. Next year, spoiler alert, we will be using year 4 to complete all the current history levels available. So before we get into the live lesson with my kids, I wanted to sit down and I wanted to answer some of the most commonly asked questions that I get surrounding history. So the first one is, what age do I think is best for starting a history curriculum in your homeschool? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it, that it really just depends on your family and your homeschooling situation. The Good and the Beautiful, I believe, recommends 2nd to 3rd grade. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what their curriculum says. However, I think that it depends on the child, and I think that before you really start adding in history and things like that, you have to have, you know, a child that can focus for a little bit longer, enjoys, you know, learning about history, can understand, you know, past times and current times, and just have a general understanding. So I think it depends on the child, but as an overall general rule, I think 2nd to 3rd grade is a great time to start a history curriculum. In my personal opinion, I would want to move pretty slowly at that point. And to go along with that, I get asked a lot, well, are they old enough to retain it? And the answer is, with history, they're going to be learning history their entire schooling lives and beyond, potentially. So history is really something that builds on each other. So no, your 2nd grader isn't going to grasp the, you know, horrificness of the Great Depression as much as an older child would, but that doesn't mean that they can't understand that, you know, that was a difficult time. And, you know, you see what I'm saying? So the depth of understanding increases as your child gets older, but that is not a reason to not teach them about history just because they can't really get the fullness, because the more times you circle back to something, the better their understanding is going to be. So I do think 2nd to 3rd grade is a great time to start it. However, if you have older kids and your kindergartner wants to listen, no harm, no foul, they can definitely listen to it then. And I wouldn't worry about it in that situation either. So that's really going to be up to every family to decide, but that's my personal opinion on that question. The next question I get asked a lot is regarding the structure of the Good and the Beautiful curriculum. So the Good and the Beautiful's history curriculum is not an entire year study in one time period. So there are 4 units in every year of history with the Good and the Beautiful, and each unit covers a different time period. So you have usually ancient, early times, biblical history as like unit 1, but they're all different in the different years. And then, you know, you might have some early civilizations, and then you might have some, you know, US, and so you move through the different time periods. So I've been asked a lot if I prefer that over doing like an entire year studying the, you know, American Revolution, and the answer is yes. I do prefer the 4 different units on 4 different time periods, and I've done both. I've done a curriculum that was an entire year focused on one time period, and it was just a lot. It was very redundant, especially if you're studying kind of a dark time in history. It can be almost like, whew, I've read enough about this. Like, I'm ready to read something a little more upbeat or focus on something else. And so I do find that we as a family enjoy, my kids as the students and me as the teacher, we enjoy having the 4 different units on 4 different time periods. I've been asked a lot, do my kids retain what they learn based on the fact that they're not studying it for as long? And the answer again is yes, they do for the most part remember and retain, and we often will reference back to things. Remember when we studied that last year? And you know, they remember things. Of course, kids always remember what they find interesting or fascinating, and so they naturally remember different things because not everything that I teach to all 4 of my kids strikes all of their interest, but they do remember for the most part what we've learned, I've seen. So I wanted to answer that. And then the last commonly asked question I get regarding history is about the read alouds and about the games. If we like them and all those things. So the games are one of our most favorite pieces of the Good and the Beautiful history. So the games definitely, they really help them learn what they're supposed to learn from that game. And my kids love them. We've loved the Bill of Rights game this year. And I couldn't be like, it's just so cool that this of all years is the year that my kids are learning about the rights that they have from the Constitution, and I just find it very timely. So I want my kids to know that, and so we've loved the Bill of Rights game that comes with year 3 history. As far as the read alouds go, I have not always done the read aloud that goes with the history curriculum. I've used some of them as our read alouds and then others not. So sometimes our family read aloud that we read together in our morning time will be you know, according to our history curriculum, and then sometimes I'm just reading a different book. So we alternate, kind of like this unit I'll do a history read aloud that goes with history, and then the next unit I'll just pick a random book, and so on and so forth. That's the way that we like to do it, just because there's so many books I want to read my kids, quite honestly, and there's just not enough time. So we don't always read every read aloud that goes with the history curriculum, and my kids still learn a ton from doing it, so have the freedom to decide, like, we're gonna read some of these books but not all of them, and that's totally fine. So those are kind of like the big questions that I get. And the last question that so many of you have been messaging me to ask me is, when I made my video about planning for high school most recently, because if you're new to my channel, my oldest daughter is starting high school next year and we are going to be continuing to homeschool, I didn't mention history in that video. And the reason why I didn't is because in our homeschool, history is a group family subject, and so it wasn't on my list. But yes, for next year, for 9th grade, she is going to still be doing history with us as a family. That is something I'm going to still continue to teach, family style, and we will be using the Good and the Beautiful history year 4. And so I think that answers a lot of your questions regarding, can you use it into high school? We are. I haven't got, my brain is not on 10th grade. My brain is barely making it to 9th grade. So next year, that's what we're doing. And of course, I'll keep you guys updated as we progress through high school, but I wanted to mention that as well. So now we are going to jump into the live homeschooling history lesson, and I'll let you guys get a feel for how we teach history in our homeschool. If you have any questions for me, please post them down in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you find these live homeschooling videos helpful to you. And if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to leave that as well. If you want to check out The Good and the Beautiful, I will have a link to their website down in my description box. But we are going to start our history lesson now, and I hope you guys enjoy coming along with us. So we are on lesson 32 in history year 3 from The Good and the Beautiful, and the lessons always tell you exactly what they are teaching about in the little top section there. We are about to finish up unit 2, in this year's history course. So this is actually the last lesson in this year's history course, and then we're moving on to Unit 3, which is the westward expansion and industrialization. So really excited. The first lesson is on Daniel Boone, and so that'll be a great lesson. But we have been learning all about different Native American tribes, and so we've really enjoyed this as well. So that is one thing to just point out, that every history course from The Good and the Beautiful contains 4 different sections of, there's different sections in history in each course. You're not doing 1 year of study. So when you order it, you get a book that you literally, I mean, it's so self-explanatory. If you've used The Good and the Beautiful for anything else, then you know that this is very easy to follow. You get a book of the Big Book of History Stories, which has a lot of maps. As you can see, we've been placing the different tribe names throughout this map. So you get that. You also get, depending on what year, a game, which is written in when to play it. Of course, you can play it if you want more or less, but it'll be down here. And then you also get a PDF download of Student Explorers, which I keep right down there. Those are like worksheets and things that go with history based on their grade level. But I already looked over this lesson and we're not doing anything in our Student Explorers today, so I don't need that. And then there are these really fun audio recordings. Who speaks in the audio recordings?
Kate and Jack.
There you go, Kate and Jack. And so I have the computer to play those. And so we have everything we need to start our history lesson. So I will just start right where it tells me to with the map activity. And then I'm gonna read. It tells me to read to the children. And it really is very easy to follow. And so we will go through that together today. Okay, Kylie, what states do you see in the now southeast culture area? What
Florida.
States? It would be Florida. What else?
A little bit of Texas.
A little bit of Texas.
South Carolina. Wait, yeah. South
maybe.
Carolina, North Carolina.
What about where we went
Louisiana.
Yeah.
Georgia, Alabama, New York,
New York
No, New
is
York
down
is
here.
not up there.
Alabama,
Alabama.
Georgia.
Okay, good.
You said that already.
So those are, today we're going to be learning about the southeast culture area, and it's kind of known as the 5 civilized tribes. So there were 5 tribes that were in that southeast area. There were others as well, but these are the 5 that we're focusing on. So there was the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole.
Oh, I know.
Have you ever heard of any of those?
I heard the first one you said.
I heard
Davy
Cherokee.
Crockett fought against the Creek Indians and the Cherokee.
We should watch
Cherokee.
that.
Cherokee.
Cherokee. But he fought them.
Davy Crockett did?
Yeah, he fought against the Creek Indians.
Cool. Okay, so it says, by the late 1500s, remarkable civilizations have developed in the southeast culture area. Besides living in well-planned villages with productive farms, the Native American tribes had intricate governing organizations and religious traditions. They even had advanced medical skills and practices. Living in the east, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes had early contact with the colonial settlers. Remember? They were already there. These tribes were called the 5 civilized tribes by the settlers because they were relatively advanced civilizations and they had more friendly manners. So, what are the 5 civilized tribes? Cherokee? No, not Cherokee. Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole.
Do all of them start with the C?
Except Seminole starts with an S. So we're gonna attach our little tribe paper to our map. So Livy, come over here and you can add the tape to it for the southeast. Cherokee built their villages along the rivers and streams where they could farm the rich black soil. They grew beans, squash, and pumpkins, sunflowers, tobacco, and 3 kinds of corn, 1 to boil, 1 to roast, 1 to dry, and 1 to grind into corn flour. They also gathered native wild plants to eat, including roots, berries, cherries, crab apples, persimmons, grapes, hickory nuts, chestnuts, and walnuts. What food would you enjoy eating that the Cherokee ate?
Cherries.
Cherries, walnuts, grapes. Yeah, berries would probably be my favorite thing that they had. The Southeast natives generally had 2 houses, a small winter pit and a large, well-vented summer house. So do you guys remember some of the other houses we learned about? Landon, can you tell me a few of the other types of houses that we learned about?
Longhouse, teepee, cave, igloo, underground house.
Bungalow.
Yeah.
A bungalow.
The bara.
Barbara.
Good.
That's all of them.
Yep. So are you familiar with the sport lacrosse? Have any of you guys ever heard of that?
Yes.
Sport lacrosse?
Yeah.
Is it the one with the little sticky?
Yes.
net? The bouncy.
It's similar to soccer in some ways. 1763, Cherokee warriors and British soldiers fought against French soldiers and French allied Native American tribes. Toward the end of the war, however, in 1760, the Cherokee revolted against their British allies. The conflict started when a group of Cherokee were journeying home from a battle where they had helped the British take Fort, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Duquesne? Have you ever heard of that, Landon? No? On their journey, they captured some wild horses. Some Virginia frontiersmen claimed the horses as their own, attacked the band of Cherokee, killing 12, sold the horses, and collected a bounty on the Cherokee scalps. It's pretty brutal. When the Cherokee chief Okonostota learned of this crime, he led raids on the frontier settlements. This was the start of the Cherokee War, which would continue for 2 years before the Cherokee surrendered. So when we read about those things, it's important to recognize that if both sides had been acting Christ-like, do you think that that would have prevented the Cherokee War from taking place?
Yes.
So what things do you think if they were both being Christ-like, what differences would have been?
They would have been
the Europeans would never have scalped or stole from them.
So murder, they wouldn't have done that.
Wouldn't have been. People in the war probably would have been killed.
There would be no war. Cherokee. The Cherokee wouldn't have attacked them back for
So they wouldn't have got revenge. Good. What about, it started over capturing some wild horses.
They would just have stolen.
So they wouldn't take what wasn't theirs if they were. That's a little picture of the Cherokee newspaper called the Cherokee Phoenix. Can you see it okay?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Pretty civilized.
Some sweat from her forehead.
I'm usually okay with heat, but this heat feels like it's going to melt me. That's because of the humidity. 85 degrees in this humidity feels hotter than 85 degrees in the deserts out west.
You can say that again.
Take heart, crew. We have almost reached the Hidden Valley. With this encouragement, Kate, Jack, Lucy, and Aunt Sarah seemed to recover their energy a bit and had a little more bounce in their steps. Within 10 or 15 minutes, Scouts stopped.
The audio recording. Who traveled with the Native Americans along the Trail of Tears offering comfort and aid? Olivia.
Missionaries.
Christian missionaries. And so that's why it's important to understand that when we, like they said on the audio recording, that when we hear about certain events in history, especially ones where a lot of people died, or where people did really heinous things to other people, one thing that is important to understand is that there is no race, religion, color of skin that has never done anything wrong to another group of people, right? We all. So there were, but at the same time, there have been great people of all races, all colors, all religions that helped during those times as well. So you can never say, oh, this whole group of people, they are just totally bad and evil, because even in that group of people are good people that helped others in times of need. So it's important to know that. So there were Christian missionaries that traveled along the Trail of Tears and offered comfort and aid. Caleb, what is one way that you can trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding this week?
Not worrying about things that we can't control.
Yeah, and especially when things are not going the way that you think they should. We can't rely on our own understanding because we don't understand everything, right? So we understand some things, but when we don't understand everything, then we know that God has a greater purpose or, you know, a picture of what is going to come from a difficult time. So this timeline activity, the timeline comes with year 2's course, I believe, and we have it hanging in our schoolroom. So even though we just did those discussion questions together, as you guys heard, the timeline activity is placing the sticker on. We're not gonna all go upstairs to come back downstairs. So we'll just add that sticker on when we go upstairs, because like I said, we have the timeline hanging up in our schoolroom above our desks, but we prefer to do group subjects down here at the table together. So after that, we are down here on the map activity, and this is page 244. So we're gonna go around and each of them are gonna share something. And again, you just literally read the question here, and it says allow each child an opportunity to share his or her thoughts. Our last lesson in this unit, and we've learned a lot about the Native American culture areas. So, Kylie, which was your favorite culture area to study and why?
I like the Great Basin area.
Great Basin area?
Yeah, because I know that this in the area that.
So you liked it because we've been in those areas and seen some of these things. So that was the Shoshone, the Ute, and the Paiute Indians there in the Great Basin area. Good. Landon, what was your favorite one that we studied and why?
The southeast one.
Oh, the southeast one today? Why'd you like that one?
Well, I like the Creek Indians. They're my favorite tribe.
Because you've read about them when you've read other history books, huh?
And maybe like the Crockett.
Yep. Okay, Caleb?
I like learning about the Arctic region because it was cool to see how they survived in cold.
Yeah, the Inuit and the Aleut. Yeah, that was interesting. I actually didn't know that there were Native American tribes up there.
I kind of knew there were people with sled dogs, but I didn't know they were like classified as Native Americans. I just thought they were like
Eskimos.
Yeah, I thought they were like, they had houses and stuff. I didn't know they just.
So as you guys saw, we just went around and they each shared their thoughts about their the Native American culture area they enjoyed learning the most about, and then it has finished the Unit 2 read aloud. We are not doing a history read aloud right now. We are doing a missionary story. So even though the history course does have read alouds for every unit, we don't always do a history read aloud. That's just my preference. But so we're not finishing the Unit 2 read aloud because we're doing a different book, but that completes our history lesson today. And so all in all, I would say 30 to 45 minutes is a good average amount of time that these history lessons take from The Good and the Beautiful. And like I said, this is our 3rd year using them, and we love them. So we're gonna head upstairs now and place that timeline sticker on the timeline to finish the last thing for our history lesson today.